So nice to meet you all. I'm Nicholas. I'm CTO of Estuaire, French-based company working on the climate impact of aviation. And today I'm going to present a study that we've been working on with two partners which are listed here. Elise Energy, which is a SAF producer based in the south of France, and Bordeaux Airport as well in the south of France. And today I'm going to speak about targeted SAF distribution at airports, which is a key lever to reduce the Scope 3 emissions of aviation. So when you look at the work we've been doing with Aéroport de Bordeaux and Elise Energy, the first thing that we've been working on is on aircraft emissions inventory. So track all the flights departing and arriving Bordeaux Airport and assess the climate impact of these flights from Bordeaux to the rest of the world, including CO2, but also non-CO2 emissions. And so when we look at this famous paper from David Lee, CO2 emissions is only the top of the iceberg in terms of emissions related to aviation. And you have the so-called non-CO2 emissions, so condensation trails and nitrogen oxides that also have an impact on the climate. And this impact is quite significant. So we estimate currently that condensation trails represent plus 30% of additional impact relative to CO2. And these condensation trails are actually also noticeable in the emissions inventory that we've done for Bordeaux Airport. So you have approximately 600 kilotons of CO2 equivalent coming from CO2, but also 100 kilotons of CO2e related to contrails. I'm not going to speak today about nitrogen oxides, but it's a different impact. So basically an impact on methane and ozone concentration. So most of the climate impact of Bordeaux Airport is coming from commercial aviation and not business aviation. So nearly 96% of the climate impact is coming from the jets, so the wide-body, regional, and narrow-body jets, and only 4% is coming from general aviation and business aviation. So the condensation trails, you might see them pretty often in the sky. So these are the white trails behind aircraft. It's only ice crystals, but these ice crystals can basically generate cirrus clouds, so bigger clouds like the ones that you see here in the peninsula over Portugal. And these ice crystals and cirrus clouds will capture the heat of the Earth during day, but also during night, where they are the most potent, because during night you don't have any sun reflection. And so it's only a warming effect, while during day it can be also slightly cooling. So what we do at Estuaire is we model precisely flight by flight this contrail impact. So we simulate, so this is a flight from Barcelona to Germany, and we're going to simulate point by point the climate impact and the cirrus clouds generated by the flight. And so you see here the advected flight track and the condensation trail simulated over this flight, spreading above Italy and then Greece on the east. So these condensation trails, it's also a highly nonlinear impact. Only 3% of the flights generate 80% of the impact. Why? It's because it's only flights going through ice supersaturated regions, so with low temperature and high humidity, that will generate contrails. And these contrails, if they are generated at dawn, they will capture most of the heat of the Earth during night. Well, if they are generated during the day, early in the morning, you will also reflect the sun. So this is really a cool chart where you see the impact growing. And so it's actually already a key learning. If you take the plane, it's better to take the plane early in the morning than in the night to reduce this contrail impact. But the good news is you have several levers to reduce the contrail impacts. The first one is condensation trail avoidance. How do you avoid these areas? But SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, is also a key lever to reduce this impact. The reason is explained a little bit in this picture. So basically, sustainable aviation fuel has a slightly different chemical composition as Jet A1. You have fewer aromatics molecula in the fuel, and this will result in fewer soot particle number in the exhaust of the engine. And these soot in the exhaust of the engine are directly correlated to the ice particle number in the exhaust that generate contrail. This is true for, with a slight caveat, is that only aircraft with rich burn engines have this correlation valid. for lean burn engines such as a LEAP or GNX aircraft, you have very few particles in the exhaust. And in this case, it's different particles that activate the humidity and generate contrails, such as oil and other types of particles. So the study we've done with Élise Energy and Bordeaux is look at the contrails generated by flights departing the airport and try to understand how could we allocate a given amount of SAF to flights that will generate contrails. And so you see here that we took as an assumption 5 kilotons of eSAF from Élise Energy that corresponds to nearly 6% of the refuel EU mandate in 2030. And we simulated several strategies, so blend with 20% SAF and 80% JT1, then 34% and 50%. And what you see is that if you have an optimal allocation strategy and that you allocate this SAF gradually from the flights with the most impact to the fewer impact, then you will have basically a reduction of nearly 46% of the contrail impact. And then basically if you have more SAF, you kind of reach a plateau where there is no benefit in using SAF to reduce contrails anymore. But this is kind of an optimal strategy, right? You don't know upfront what is the contrail impact of a flight, or at least it's quite difficult to know. What we also simulated is something a bit more realistic. That would be a rule-based approach, where we looked at the top airlines departing Bordeaux, Air France, EasyJet, Volotea. We allocated these 5 kilotons across the airlines, and then we defined a set of rules where we would basically allocate this SAF. So for EasyJet, every month, for example, we would only allocate SAF to flights departing Bordeaux to several different airports, including some in Portugal. Only also on flights departing at specific departure times, so you see here mostly at down, and on specific aircraft types. And with this, basically, what we obtain in terms of results is still a significant reduction of contrail impacts. So minus 13 kilotons of CO2e with the use of SAF, minus 17% of CO2e in just reduction of well-to-wake CO2 emissions. And basically, you're kind of doubling the impact of SAF on the reduction of climate impact by allocating it a little bit cleverly. What is also interesting is that for SAF is quite, especially eSAF, quite an expensive investment for an airline. So you see here that JT1 is nearly 700 euro per ton of JT1. SAF is nearly 5 to 6 times more expensive, especially eSAF in this case. And by accounting for this contrail impact reduction, you can gain significant cost reduction by allocating SAF the right way, especially in the EU, with several mechanisms that will ask airlines to basically pay for their emissions, so the EU ETS, on CO2, on non-CO2 emissions. And basically, if you account for all of these mechanisms, you have kind of a gap of price of 4.4 million euro in total for using these 5 kilotons of SAF. Maybe jumping on the last slides here. So if we have to summarize here, you have in the top left the baseline emissions, in the middle a uniform allocation of SAF across all flights, and on the right a targeted SAF allocation to only flights generating contrails. And you see that by accounting for this smart allocation, you switch the price of SAF from 4,500 euro per ton to basically nearly double the price of JT1. So this is quite an interesting mechanism to basically find some funding to pay for the delta of price between eSAF and JT1, while also nearly tripling the impact of a reduction of climate impact on the climate. So thanks for all. It's a first analysis with Élise Energy and Bordeaux Airport, and next time is about really deploying this at scale, finding the right partners to basically test this smart allocation of SAF. And so we are looking for partners at Bordeaux Airport to lead the second version of and the deployment of such a technology. Thank you.
Thank you. If we have some question from anyone? Oh. No. I have one actually on my side. I was first congrats for this development and this with the Bordeaux airport. Well, you mentioned the next step is partnership. What are the key challenges you are facing today for the adoption? And when we have a look on the figures, I assume matching both the financial and the sustainability roadmap, what do you feel on the real adoption from the market today? If you can elaborate a bit further.
Yeah, sure. The main challenge, I would say, is that it's a multi-stakeholder problem, right? You have the airport, the fuel producer, the fuel distributor at the airport, and the airline. And an airline can pick to basically buy its SAF at its main hubs, like Paris or, I don't know, London Heathrow, for example, and decide not to buy any SAF at smaller regional airports. And so the key challenge is about incentivizing them to buy SAF at the airport where they operate, and basically find also an incentive for the fuel distributors to act on this, because the fuel distributor doesn't have any incentive rights to work on such a topic. And so, yeah, main challenge is really gathering a community of people willing to act in the same direction. The airline is willing, the airport is willing, the fuel producer, such as Elise, is also willing to act on this, and then maybe fuel distribution is the next challenge, finding the right people. Second thing is that such technology and a smart application is only feasible in areas and in segregate the SAF from the JT1, and that they are not blended upfront in a basically in a queue. And so, Bordeaux is a nice example of this, where you really segregate the two types of fuels, and you can really put a 50% SAF blend on specific flights. For bigger platforms, usually you have hydrants, and it's slightly more complex because the fuel is already blended up front.
Thank you. Clear. Any other additional question from the audience? No. All right, so maybe it's time to wish you the best for the future, and happy to follow up on your new development and hopefully successful partnership. Thanks for that. Bonjour, je vais juste donner un petit mot d'intro et des slides qu'on vous a envoyés là. Normalement, elles sont déjà préchargées. The next session, thanks Esther. The next session is now with Lookup Space, and I'm very happy to welcome Alban for good news, very good news. I invite everyone around to gather for Lookup. Just give it, I always take 1 or 2 minutes to try to see if people want to join. It's okay. We are about to welcome Lookup on stage. If you want to gather all here, it's okay. Bon, let's start. We'll try to invite many people. Thank you, Alban. The floor is yours.
Okay. Hey guys. So I'm Alban. I'm a general manager of Lookup. So what do we do at Lookup? Maybe, as you should know, space is moving and changing a lot for the past few years, and facing a lot of new challenges. So as maybe you know, space is getting congested. So we moved from, we had 400 satellites in 2010, moving to more than 12,000 nowadays. So it's pretty good. Risk in orbit increase every month, so we are detecting right now 1 million objects which are less than 10 centimeters, which are quite undetectable current. Space is getting contested, so maybe just due to the current geopolitical stuff, and there is no regulation, no policy in space, so everyone's and mostly governments wants to have their own access to space. So it's getting crowded, congested, and risky. Just to give you some figures, here on you can see on the white curve, there is a number of satellites. So as I said, we were around 400 in 2010. We were around 10,000 last year, and we're targeting between 40,000 to 100,000 satellites by 2030. So it's very, very huge. And on the red curve, so you can imagine just the number of collision avoidance maneuvers that the Starlink has to say every 6 months. So it means that that's going to be super, super crowded. So this is why we decided to create Lookup. So I'm joined by the two co-founders. So we come from space and we're working in space. So we are a young company because we have been founded 3 years ago in July 22 by former General Michel Freding, who was the former first French space commander. So he built the French space commander and he decided to left this institution 3 years ago. And the other co-founder is Juan Carlos. He was the former head of space safety at CNES, the French space agency. So both of them just decided to quit and leave their own institution because France and Europe doesn't invest for the past few years in space situational awareness or space domain awareness. So this is why we decided to create Lookup. And our idea just to be focused on the value chain just regarding the space situational awareness, from detection to action to protect the assets in orbit. So to do that, we have two main pillars. The first one is we are currently building and deploying a global network of ground-based radar. It's a new generation of radar which are going to be able to detect centimetric objects. So we are targeting objects less than 3 centimeters in LEO, so I'm in low Earth orbit. So on the right, you can see that our first radar, which is currently being commissioning in Lausanne, and it will be operational by the end of this month. So it means by summer we will be able to collect our first data from LEO. And Rain Radar is cool, but not enough. So we are currently deploying a global network, and we are using the amazing, lucky geostrategical French overseas. So we by 2030 we will deploy more than 7 radar, and this network will give us the opportunity to watch at each orbit objects. So it means we will have an aerial visit rate around 40 times a day. So no public or private institution have their own capacity yet on that time. So the second main pillar of Lookup, we have a digital platform which has two main specifics. The first one, we're data agnostic. So it means Synapse, our digital platform, is able to fuse data coming from a lot of sensors. So data coming from our Lookup radar sensor, data coming from open source data, and data coming from other sensors like optical, laser, and RF. So we can collect our own data, we use other private and public data, we fuse that, and then we transfer that to sell services to defense, commercial, or institutional players. The second main specifics of Synapse, we have a hybrid model for the deploying of that, so it means it can be on cloud or on premise. On premise, it means that we are able to deploy this solution directly to the infrastructure of our clients, mostly defense for that one. So when we have this data and to collect that and to fuse that, we are able to give some use cases regarding the site operators. So we are able to give a global view of orbital situation. We can work a connection analysis, maneuver recommendation. Maneuver recommendation, it means we are able to site operators to help them when their assets are at risk. Of course, we can work on and threat detection, like RPO, pattern of life, and so on. So thanks to that, it means we are able to help site operators to work on the entire life cycle of their mission. So from to decommissioning, like a LEOP, traffic coordination, threat monitoring, inspection, and so on. So today, as it's state opportunity, we announced on Tuesday, so 2 days ago, we just raised the Series A like 50 million euros. So honestly, it's pretty big. And for a young company like us, it's mostly European round. To that, we are going able to deploy a new radar and to work on the space operation. Yeah. So it's cool. So that's it.
We have time for a few questions. Maybe just before the question, huge congrats for this fundraising. That's a real good milestone. So, yeah, opportunity to congrats Lookup. Do we have any question for? Yeah.
Hello. May you elaborate a little bit more about the business model?
Yeah, sure. So we are selling two things. We can sell raw data, so I mean the data directly coming from the radar, so it's mostly for institutional, I mean defense or civil, or we're selling services, so the access to our digital platform, which can give you some use cases like that for site operators. So data or services.
Hi, Ilaria Snelli. Amazing work, congratulations, amazing company, really great. Can you please tell me something more about the cybersecurity of your company, please? Thank you.
Thanks for this question. I'm not the tech guy or the guy who is invest in that, so I can't go deeper. But it's a real concern for us because we currently working on strategic stuff, and thanks to our global network, we are going to be able to detect all SATs. I mean mostly defense. This solution just to be sure that we can be hacked, and this is the reason why we try to deploy this solution directly on premise on the own infrastructure of the clients. So we work with the French provider to cybersec, and just to be sure the platform can't be hacked. So I hope that's all right.
Any additional question? It's okay. Thank you, Alban. Once again, well done for this fundraising. Wishing you the best for the coming milestone.